Have you ever felt completely trapped, like intensely, agonizingly drawn to someone who you know deep down is consistently hurting you? Well, if so, this explainer is for you. Today, we're going on a deep dive, a real psychological investigation into one of the most painful experiences a human being can go through: toxic love. We're going to intersect developmental psychology, evolutionary biology, and even behavioral neurochemistry to answer a question that literally haunts millions of people. And we're going to do this with a lot of empathy, but make no mistake, we're using rigorous science to get there. Because it's a profound mystery, right? Why do incredibly smart, capable, strong people stay in relationships that actively destroy them? You know, society usually looks at this and just says, well, just leave. We tend to judge. We think, oh, it must be low self-esteem, or they just have a weak character. But we need to absolutely shatter that myth right here, right now. What we're actually looking at, it is not a failure of intelligence. It's not a lack of willpower. It's a biological hijacking. And today, we're going to solve the mystery of exactly how that happens. Okay, let's dive into this, because the unsettling truth about these toxic dynamics is this. It's not a flaw in your judgment. It's actually your brain working exactly as designed. Think about it. Under conditions of intense, unpredictable threat mixed with a reward, your nervous system just kicks in. It's running a purely primitive survival program that you did not consciously choose. So that intense spark, that electric chemistry you feel in a toxic relationship, that isn't actually love. It's your nervous system severely dysregulating. Your brain is just reacting to a highly sophisticated form of conditioning. To really grasp this, we have to talk about what a trauma bond actually is. At its core, a trauma bond is a literal biological addiction to a toxic person. It forms through this deeply confusing abusive cycle. Basically, the very person who is causing you all this panic and pain, they somehow become the only person who can provide you with relief. Imagine how devastating that trap is. The stress of their cruelty triggers immense panic, and tragically, your body interprets their sudden return to being affectionate as your absolute only means of survival. It completely exploits your most primal instincts, locking you into a desperate cycle of dependence that honestly mirrors substance abuse. And just how severe is this addiction? Well, biological anthropologist Helen Fisher actually conducted neuroimaging research on heartbroken people, and the brain scans revealed something genuinely terrifying. Getting romantically rejected by a highly inconsistent partner, it activates the exact same neural circuits as cocaine withdrawal. No joke. Craving an unpredictable partner is not just a metaphor for addiction. Mechanically speaking, it is the exact same process, utilizing the exact same dopaminergic infrastructure in your brain. So what's happening inside the brain? It's basically brewing this dangerous chemical cocktail, what we can call the 4 chemicals of coercive control. First, you get this massive spike in dopamine. That's the craving chemical, giving you extreme euphoria during the love bombing phase. Then, oxytocin floods in. That's the bonding hormone, forcing deep trust, literally binding you to them even when logic screams that they're dangerous. Suddenly, the devaluation phase hits, the silent treatments, the insults, and cortisol, the stress hormone, just floods your system. You're terrified, thrust into this primal life-or-death survival state. Finally, when they return and apologize, your brain releases endogenous opioids. These are natural painkillers that give you a rush of narcotic-like comfort. This whole extreme chemical roller coaster completely overrides your rational prefrontal cortex, leaving your fear-driven amygdala completely at the wheel. Now, the engine driving all this chemical chaos is a behavioral concept called intermittent reinforcement. B.F. Skinner discovered this, and it's basically the slot machine effect. Science shows us that unpredictable rewards spike your dopamine significantly higher than guaranteed ones. I mean, think about it. If a slot machine paid out every single time, you'd get incredibly bored, right? If it never paid out, you'd just walk away. But because it pays out unpredictably, the brain becomes totally obsessed. In a relationship, this means the occasional, unpredictable kindness of a toxic partner actually becomes neurochemically far more addictive than the consistent, reliable warmth of a healthy partner. But here's the thing. The neurochemistry explains exactly how the trap closes. But why do some people walk right past that trap, while others step directly into it? Well, the chemistry is really only half the story. To understand the deepest root of this addiction and why your specific nervous system might be susceptible to this exact type of manipulation, we have to look backward. We need to transition our investigation from the cold, hard mechanics of the brain to the haunting, echoing hallways of childhood psychology. To find the answer, we really have to uncover a phenomenon known as repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud was the first to identify this, and it's basically this unconscious, almost gravitational drive we have to repeat traumatic experiences from our past. And you might be thinking,
why on earth would we do this? Well, it's actually the psyche's desperate attempt to gain mastery over unresolved trauma. We subconsciously seek out familiar, painful situations, secretly hoping that this time, if we are just good enough, or if we're smart enough, or if we just love them hard enough, we can finally fix the unfixable person and change the outcome. But the tragic truth is, the outcome never changes.
This deep vulnerability isn't built overnight. It's built across an entire lifetime, almost always starting in early childhood. Look, if you had caregivers who were inconsistent, highly critical, or emotionally unavailable, you were essentially handed a faulty blueprint for love. As you moved into adolescence, your developing nervous system learned a really tragic lesson. It started equating emotional chaos, chasing, and deep anxiety with true connection. By the time you reach adulthood, this internal working model is operating entirely beneath your conscious awareness. Your inner child is essentially driving the car, unconsciously seeking out partners who perfectly recreate that original childhood wound.
And this brings us to a deeply painful psychological reality known as the negative introject. If you grew up with a critical or maybe even a narcissistic parent, you likely internalized their voice. That voice becomes this punishing inner critic that constantly attacks you from within, telling you that you just aren't good enough. Tragically, when a toxic partner criticizes, gaslights, or belittles you, their external abuse perfectly matches your own internal narrative. It resonates with that negative introject. And as twisted as it sounds, this creates a painful but entirely predictable sense of stability for the victim. It feels right simply because it confirms what they subconsciously already believe about themselves. And that right there is the profound tragedy of trauma reenactment. Your nervous system equates familiarity with safety, even when that familiarity is actively harming you. Evolutionarily speaking, your brain is predisposed to seek out the known over the unknown. So if you are used to chaos, a genuinely secure, healthy relationship will actually trigger your anxiety. A nice, reliable partner just isn't going to trigger those massive dopamine and cortisol spikes. And because of this, the dysregulated brain literally registers the absence of chaos as a lack of connection. It completely dismisses healthy love as just boring. When you carry these childhood wounds into adulthood, they set the stage for this terrifyingly perfect, toxic dance between two opposing forces. On one side, you have the empath or the codependent, usually highly sensitive, possessing weak boundaries, and desperately seeking to rescue and heal others just to prove their own worth. On the exact opposite side, you have the narcissist, or someone with dark triad traits, demanding constant admiration, highly entitled, and completely lacking empathy. It is a frightening lock-and-key fit. The codependent's endless willingness to sacrifice perfectly, flawlessly feeds the narcissist's grandiosity. It creates this totally symbiotic cycle of exploitation and eventually total burnout.
So the big question, how do we actually escape this? You absolutely must realize that breaking a trauma bond is not a normal breakup. You can't simply change your relationship status and expect to move on. What you are doing is a neurological uncoupling. You have to stop trying to just think your way out of the relationship and start treating it exactly like what it is, a severe neurochemical dependency. Escaping this requires the discipline, the self-compassion, and the highly structured withdrawal management of literally checking yourself into rehab. Achieving this neurological uncoupling requires a massive shift in mindset. It starts with looking at your own history without an ounce of shame, acknowledging that, hey, your biology was hijacked. From there, you have to treat that burning urge to text them not as a symptom of lost true love, but as a severe dopamine craving that you have to expect and manage. Ultimately, real freedom requires seeking trauma-informed therapy to heal that inner child and actively, intentionally reconditioning your brain to finally tolerate the quiet, sometimes seemingly boring safety of true stability.
Because as you heal, your very definition of what chemistry is will radically change. Toxic love, it gives you these intense highs and lows, leaving you utterly depleted, trapped in a constant state of anxiety, just walking endlessly on eggshells. But healthy love is entirely different. It doesn't feel like a roller coaster. It is anchored in calm security. It's steady, it's incredibly reliable, and it gives you the ultimate freedom, the ability to just be your true, authentic self without any fear of sudden retaliation or withdrawal of affection.
We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, untangling the incredibly complex neurobiology and the deep, often hidden psychological roots that keep us tethered to the very people who harm us. But listen, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, let it be this lingering, revolutionary truth. Love is not supposed to hurt. You are entirely worthy of a connection that brings you profound peace, not constant panic. The journey to rewiring your heart and your mind, yes, it's challenging, but true freedom is waiting for you on the other side. The only question left to ask yourself is, are you ready to finally let go of the chaos and allow yourself to be safely, truly loved?